Well, good evening, my fellow friends and countrymen. Glad to have you for a few moments to talk about last day's live. By way of brief introduction, for those of you who are regulars, you will notice that I am not in my typical position, and there's a reason for that. I've explained it several times in my live broadcast so far, but this might be the only one that you get during the week, so let me explain it one last time. Cindy Gabriel and I did a good deed. We went and cleaned the house of a good friend of ours who had a back surgery and couldn't do it on his own. But unfortunately, 2 days later, we discovered that friend got COVID-19. He has what is it called? Coronavirus. And actually was hospitalized for pneumonia. They discovered coronavirus, and we were just in his house. Cindy was cleaning his toilet and his showers, and I was doing the dishes. Gabriel was making the bed. We were right in the middle of that. Now, we don't have any, as far as we know, we're clean. We don't have any problems, but we're trying to be good folks, and so we've kind of sort of, and I say that kind of sortily, we've been trying to quarantine ourselves. That is, we're just trying to stay away from people. We're not really under a major quarantine, certainly not one that the law would require, I don't think. But anyhow, all that said, I'm trying to stay away from my mom and dad, and I'm having Mountain Men withdrawal. on Monday nights at 7, I go down there and watch Mountain Men with my mom and dad, and I really, really love it. And I'm having withdrawal from my mom and dad too because I like them. But that's kind of our thing. But I'm not able to do it tonight. So anyhow, I thank you for joining me. Got a lot to talk about this evening. Some stuff that I think will really, light a fire under you. At least I hope it'll light a fire under you. Because I tell you what, folks, we're only, less than 2 weeks out from this election thing. My mom and dad went and tried to vote today, but the line was too long, and they had to stand outside in the rain and all that kind of thing. My dad's old, and my mom's old, and they got health problems, and so they weren't able to get it in, but we're gonna. And I plan to vote in person, as they say. I want to vote in person. Got a glare on the screen. Let's see if I can take that off. No, that doesn't help at all. Wonder what that glare is. Does that bother anybody else? It does me. So let's just turn some lights off here and see if one of these helps. Did it go away yet? Can anybody tell? Oh, well, even if it doesn't, I guess I got to get into it because I guess you're not really here to look at me as much as you are. No, it's that other light that's over there, guys. I'm sorry. I should have had this thing set up ahead of time, but Sonny Childs, he is never completely prepared like he needs to be. Or at least he tries. I spent the last hour out here in my office making sure I had all my stuff together. There you go. The glare is gone. All right, let's get after this thing. Are you ready? Tonight, we want to talk about a few things that are very important. Here's where we want to go. And these are just the current events that I want to deal with. Graham, who's considering ordering Facebook and Twitter chiefs to testify on censoring Hunter Biden's scandal, was in a lengthy debate the last couple of days with a friend of mine. He's a bleeding heart liberal. Who's constantly defending everything except for Fox News and everything except for President Trump. And so if it has Trump anywhere in the context, believe me, he's going to be against it. But he is refusing to acknowledge the facts that are coming out because I am presenting them from Fox News. The reason I present Fox News, by the way, is because it's the only one of the major news networks that actually offsets the ultra-liberal stance of the... I'm not suggesting to you that Fox News is innocent. I'm not even suggesting to you that Fox News doesn't have a bias. It does. It's got a conservative bias. But come on, folks, I'm a Christian. What would you expect? I'm going to seek my news from those who are at least going to look at it from a conservative perspective. And one of the big things, as far as the Fox News is concerned, that means the world to me is that they give me some more information that offsets. For generations, we've had the CBS, the NBCs, the ABCs, and all of those. We've had them who have been doctoring and giving us their filtered material. And finally, we got Fox News, and I'm celebrating it, okay? Again, I'm not suggesting to you that Fox News is innocent in everything. And I'm not even suggesting to you that they don't have a bias, but it's sure refreshing to at least have a bias that has a conservative slant to it when you come from a conservative background. You know what I'm saying? So let's go back to that slide. And so, yeah, it's true that both of these stories that I'm citing here, they happen to come from the Fox News network. But at the same time, as the facts build, and the liberals are, the problem with the liberals is they are constantly not only wanting to skew the facts and twist the facts, they want to tell you who is allowed to speak the facts. Well, here's some facts. And by the way, I just read just a few moments ago that Hunter Biden's signature has been found on a form that they were signing out or signing in one of his, two or three of his laptops, on which they're finding this damaging material about Joe Biden and the influence that he used while he was the vice president. Listen, we've got 44, count them, 44 years of documented political history with regards to this Biden character. I'm talking about Joe Biden and how he would rule, how he would reign over our nation, the compromises that he's willing to make to sacrifice anything and everything in order to make sure that he maintains power, etc. We got 44 years of this man. We only got 4 years of President Trump. I'm not saying they're all clean, but I am telling you that you got 44 years of Biden, and you got 4 years of President Trump, and yet you watch them. They're going to throw softballs during the debate times, and all these various meetings. They throw softballs at Biden. They let him live in his basement. They let him run from the actual discussion with regards to what are you going to do with your son Hunter. It said he runs from that. Are you going to pack the Supreme Court? No comment. Not going to go there. And he runs from, and they just continue to pander him. They just continue to give him the softball. But then you'll notice whenever President Trump is called, he's able to have a town meeting. They just crucify the man. We got 4 years of President Trump. We got 44 years of Biden. Surely there's some material out there that they could produce, that they could throw him something different than a softball, but they're not willing to do that. Anyhow, tonight we're going to talk about this idea of subpoenas that are coming, perhaps, and evidence that's just being unearthed as we speak with regards to Hunter Biden and his very, very troubled past. And by the way, that troubled past has something to do with his dad. I'm not suggesting that his dad is guilty of everything, but you don't become this kind of a man without some level of influence from your father, and I think that has to be factored in there. And then the second thing I want to talk about is this Fauci, however you call that guy's name, Fauci fatigue. We need to talk a little bit about the whole coronavirus thing and what's going on there. So let's just get after it, okay? First of all, let's just start with the last thing I mentioned, this whole coronavirus. Trump is saying that Americans are tired of this guy and the coronavirus, and I completely agree with him. It's time for us to move on, folks. There's a possibility that Cindy and I could have contracted COVID, and Gabriel could have contracted it when we went and cleaned that guy's apartment. That kind of. I get all of that, but I'll tell you what: if I turn up tomorrow with COVID-19 or coronavirus, whatever you want to call it, if I turn up tomorrow with that in my system, I'm going to tell you the same thing. And that is that, the whole face mask thing was a knee-jerk, ridiculous reaction. I'm not saying there aren't sometimes that we need to do that, but the fact that we are going around making everybody look like the enemy is just nonsensical. I love Matt Walsh. You see the article there at the bottom, or the little blog statement. He's one of my favorite bloggers. But Matt Walsh, he just says it, common sense stuff. Children have gotten used to living in a world where everyone wears masks. Think about that. Think about the psychology of that. They're used to a world where everybody wears a mask. You never see people's face in public anymore. And we treat strangers, this is a big point, and we treat strangers like they're radioactive. That's huge, because you notice that when we are required, the healthy folks are required to wear masks everywhere. They're even saying in some states that they're recommending that you wear them when you're in your own home. And when you wear these masks, what is it saying to the person who meets you? We're just telling everybody by what's on our face, the one thing that everybody looks at, we're telling them you're the enemy. No wonder we're such a divided nation. Kids should not be used to this. It's not healthy. It's not good. Who knows what the psychological damage we've done? I completely agree, Matt. I think that's exactly the point. And I believe that Trump is finally, and by the way, I'm trying to be balanced here. I don't believe that President Trump handled this very well earlier on. I think that he bought into the ridiculous science of this Fauci guy, and I believe that he allowed that ridiculous science, which has done anything but proven itself over the last several months, and he bought into that, and we shut down an economy, and et cetera, et cetera. I just don't buy it. I just don't buy a lot of what took place with some of these individuals, and I don't believe that the liberals concocted the coronavirus so that they have just one more thing to throw into their arsenal, along with Russiagate and everything else that they've done to try to destroy this president's presidency. But I do believe that the moment it hit the fan, they thought to themselves, this is an opportunity. We can make President Trump look good or look bad. We can do everything that we can to make ourselves look good and him look like an idiot. And this is just the perspective of the liberal left, and it's the way that they operate. Now, here's the point, folks. if 2 weeks from today we wake up and we find out that Joe Biden is our next president, you think about where that leads our nation. Think about the way the Democrats have treated our president over the last 4 years. They have not begun to even get close to legitimizing his 4 years of presidency. And think about how that's going to play out in the future. If they can run roughshod over the electorate that put President Trump in the White House, and then they gain power now to do whatever they want, folks, we're in a heap of trouble. We're in a world of trouble, which leads me to this next frame with regard back to this whole idea of what's going on with regards to Hunter Biden. I don't think that folks are really thinking this through when it comes to the idea of what does this say about the future in a Biden presidency. ABC, CBS, NBC, all of which are in the back pocket of Joe Biden. Zero coverage, according to this particular meme. I'm not sure that's completely accurate, but they certainly have had very, very little coverage compared to the facts that are coming out. And then, of course, Facebook, Twitter, censoring various things, the president, etc. In their mind, it's false material. Therefore, they're able to censor that. These are the same liberals who are that they whine about free speech and being able to say what they want, and the cursing and the cussing that goes on our primetime television. They defend that. They defend Hollywood. Same folks. But all of a sudden now, they are, Facebook has the right. Twitter has the right to just kind of boycott and censor whatever they want. I recognize the word censor here is not spelled correctly, and I hate that, but what do you do? It wasn't my meme. Okay, and so yes, all I'm asking you to do here is consider this, and I like how it ends. You awake yet? Think about we wake up if we wait, 15, 16 days, something like that, 2 weeks from today, from 2 weeks in the future, if we wake up approximately that, I'm all confused. Do the math, whatever it is. If we wake up one of these days very, very soon, too soon as far as I'm concerned, and Biden is the next president of the United States, I want you to consider what it took to get him there. I want you to recognize what the liberal media was willing to do and how that they were never willing to legitimize the presidency of President Trump. From the beginning, they've done everything. Hillary Clinton, Obama, and Biden did everything possible to undermine this man's presidency. Now they've got ABC, CBS, NBC, MSNBC. They've got Twitter. They've got Facebook. They've got all of these news agencies under their thumb. Imagine what's going to happen to free speech as far as Christians are concerned. Because as I told this bleeding liberal friend of mine, who I argue with regularly, on Facebook, I told him, I said, look, my only reason for being in politics, as far as having any influence in politics, is because I want to be a 5-talent man. God gave me the opportunity to help select individuals who either will destroy or preserve a Christian context, and I want to be there. The bipolar approach of these folks is what really concerns me. And I get a lot of criticism about, and this particular fellow has criticized me this. He says, Sonny, man, I just really appreciate it when you talk Bible, but you're just so far off the broken path when it comes to political things. I just wish you'd stay in Bible. And so all of a sudden, preachers aren't allowed to have a perspective with regards to politics. And what it is, it's a bipolar approach to life. I've got a Sunday conviction, but it's a different conviction on election day. So I'm supposed to have a certain mentality on Sunday. I go through the actions, I guess, and I kind of pretend like I'm a holy person. Only on election day, I'm going to elect individuals that will support baby sacrifice, homosexuality, transgenderism, Islam, the false god worship. So it's a bipolar, and it's the thing that has created such a vacuum as far as morality is concerned in our nation. And in the church specifically, because we have bought into this bipolarization of our value system. The separation of church and state is a ridiculous concept. There, I said it. Ridiculous concept. It forces an individual to be bipolar. That which is most intimate to you, and that is your convictions with regards to how you got here. They're telling us that we have to park that when we go into the election booth and we pull the lever or we mark the thing or whatever. It's creating a psychological ridiculousness. Anyhow, my friends, I beg of you to consider what it's going to look like if Joe Biden wins this thing, given that he has got the liberal media in his back pocket. And by the way, I'll be fair here. I suspect if he does, Fox will probably fold in the future as well, because Fox is going to go where the money is. And if all of a sudden we don't seem to have Christians that have a voice any longer, etc., they're going to transition and they'll go in that direction. I just promise you that. And so I beg of you as Christians to recognize that, as I've said several times over the last several broadcasts, that if you stay home on November 3rd and you do not cast your vote, if you do not participate in the political process because there just isn't a good candidate to vote for, you're going to be like, it would have been like Daniel, who heard that Nebuchadnezzar had a dream. Nobody could interpret it. And Nebuchadnezzar was fixing to wipe them all out. Daniel could have stayed home that night, but he didn't. Daniel volunteered to go in before the king of the known world, and he said, I will interpret that dream through the power of God. Guys, if you got an opportunity given to you, hand-fed, given to you by God, you got to take advantage of it, or you're the one talent man burying your talent out back, and you will one day hear, depart from me, you wicked, lazy servant. You're a 5-talent man. You've got the potential, that is, to be a 5-talent man in America. One of the great opportunities, the gifts that God has given to you, is the opportunity to voice your opinion with regards to who should serve us. And individuals who are not willing to exercise that, I believe that they're lazy. I believe that they need to be called out, and I'm here to do it. All right, let's move on. Here's where I want to go with regards to haunting passages this evening. And this, by the way, stick with me, because this is going to tie directly into some of that politics stuff that I was talking to you about just a second ago. Revelation chapter 19, I've been studying this passage. I know there's a lot there on the screen to read, and a lot of it's in orange, but this is a haunting passage to me. I can't get it out of my mind, because I got a lot of these warm, fuzzy, weak-kneed preacher buddies who just, they don't seem to have any backbone at all. Everything's it's going to be okay, you know. And by the way, I'll give you one that it just kind of galls me. I see this all the time. Doesn't matter who's going to be, who is elected on November 3rd, Jesus is still on his throne. Well, of course Jesus is still going to be on his throne. For Pete's sake, if you're a Christian, that's an obvious statement. But here's the point. As he sits on that throne, what kind of a ruler is he going to be? I don't think Christians who are posting that have any clue what they're actually saying. So let me just describe this fella who will, and I say that with all reverence, this fella who is going to sit on the throne regardless if it's a Biden or a Trump presidency. You're right. Jesus will still be on his throne, but I want you to think about what that means. Notice this passage. Then I saw heaven open, and behold, a white horse. The one sitting on it is called Faithful and True and in Righteousness. This is Jesus, of course. You'll see that here in a moment. He judges and makes war. This is your Jesus. It describes him as a person who judges and makes war. Verse 12, his eyes are like the flame of fire. I can't say that I ever experienced that directly, but there have been moments when I was acting up in church and my mom got my eye across the building, and it was like she was shooting flames of fire in my direction and said, you straighten up or I'm coming over there and judgment will come down. Well, that's the idea that's happening here. So we've got a Jesus who makes war. He makes war. Okay, he seeks out the opportunity to go to war. He makes war. He's got eyes that are like the flames of fire. He is clothed in a robe dripped in blood. You do with that what you can, but I'm going to associate it with the warlike imagery that we have here, that your Jesus, the same one that these mealy-mouthed preachers are constantly, these feel-good preachers are constantly just kind of watering down the message and saying, oh, it's going to be okay, you know. Jesus is still on his throne. I don't think they're considering what that means. We're talking about a Jesus who goes to war, has eyes like flames of fire, and has his garments dripping in blood. You move on down, it says, verse 15, from his mouth comes a sharp sword with which to strike down the nations, and he will rule them with an iron rod. He will tread the winepress of the fury of the wrath of God Almighty. Think about that. He will be the one treading out the winepress. You know what the person treading out the wine, you know who that is? That's the one in there stomping on the grapes. He's the one smashing them. This is Jesus. And Jesus is going to be treading out the winepress, and it's described as the fury, the fury of the wrath of God. Think about it. It's not just the wrath of God, it's the fury of the wrath of God. This is the Jesus that you and I serve. Now, I'm fixing to make a point to you here in just a moment, because I'm fixing to put up a slide that's going to cover up my face, and you're going to see it side by side. And my point is going to be that the warrior Jesus is looking for warriors. He's not looking for the sissified church. He's not looking for somebody who has been effeminated, whatever the word. He's not looking for anybody who is not brave and strong and willing to stand for what is truth. He's not looking for some of these preachers who will get into the pulpit and they just kind of mealy mouth their way around because they want to ingratiate themselves to the community. He's looking for warriors. You look at the description of your Lord here and you call yourself a Christian. If you're Christ-like and you ain't like this, how can you call yourself Christ-like? Verse 17, then I saw an angel standing in the sun. With a loud voice he called to all the birds that are flying directly overhead. Why is he calling out to the birds? Well, watch it. Come, gather for the great supper of God. What? He's calling the birds to gather for the supper. It's called the supper of God. To eat the flesh of the kings. The supper of God is for the birds to come and feed on the flesh of the enemies of Jesus Christ. Then verse 20, and the beast was captured, and with it the false prophet who had deceived those who had received the mark of the beast and those who worshipped his image. Now we can do whatever you want with the eschatology and go in 1,000 different directions. I get all that. But the one thing I think we all agree on is whoever these people are that receive the mark of the beast, they ain't good. They've compromised. They have been the ones who have been lulled into a slumber of compromise and willing to go and have their feet in both worlds. There are individuals who probably, even within the church, are individuals who are willing to come and on Sunday, I'll go through the motions, but on election day, I've got an entirely different perspective. These are folks who compromise their created being. They're not acknowledging the Creator as they need to. And because of that, it says that they have the mark of the beast. Well, these individuals are folks who are following after the kings who, by the way, provide the food for the supper of God, the kings themselves being that food. This is a graphic, bloody passage, and it haunts me because this is stuff I believe is on the horizon, and I believe that I've got some good friends, even Christian friends, who are going to be subject to this very kind of wrath because they are compromisers, because they are more content with tone it down and keep the peace and ingratiate yourself to the community than they are speaking the hard truth. But then you move into the last part of the passage. These two, that would be, of course, the beast and the false prophet. These two were thrown alive. Why does it say that? They weren't killed. They were thrown alive, which means that they're going to go there living and they're going to stay living. Hell is eternal just like heaven's eternal. And if you go there, it's a living horror show. They're thrown alive into the lake of fire that burns with sulfur. Verse 21. And the rest... That's all those folks who have the mark of the beast being going along with the kings of the earth that are going in directions that God doesn't want. The rest were slain by the sword that came from the mouth of him who is sitting on the horse. Who's sitting on the horse? Jesus. And all the birds were gorged with their flesh. Gorged with their flesh. Folks, not only does this haunt me, but as it haunts me from a perspective of, I've got to say something. I got to do something. I've got good friends, I believe, who are in danger of experiencing that because they don't have enough backbone to actually stand up and be counted. Now, here's where bye-bye. You're not going to see my face anymore, but that's probably a good thing. Watch this now. The second thing that I've got in front of you here is a listing. You know that I've got another theme that's going along with Last Days Live that's very important to our times, and that is the church is soft. And I'm trying to document the fact that the church is soft present tense by telling you what Jesus warns the 7 churches of Asia back in the day. And I believe, frankly, that that's not just for them back in the day, but because there's 7 of them, I think he's talking to us today as well. But there's a phrase or a word that occurs in all 7 letters to the 7 churches. This is lesson 4, not lesson 3. I forgot to change that. This is lesson 4 with regards to the church is soft. I'm calling it the warrior king expects warriors. Now, on the left, you see the haunting passage. That's a warrior king, my friends. That's a man's man. That is somebody who's got his garments dripping in blood. He's got a sword coming out his mouth. He's inviting the birds to come and to feast on the kings that he himself is. He is treading out the wine press of God's wrath. That's a man's man. That's a warrior. And the warrior king, that's Jesus Christ. The warrior king is looking for warriors. Are you one? Notice the phrases that are common throughout the 7 churches of Asia as he warns them about how they must be in order to be right with God. To the one who overcomes, he says to Ephesus, to Smyrna, to the one who overcomes, to Pergamum, therefore repent, if not, I will come to you soon and will war against them with the sword of my mouth, to the one who overcomes. There's that phrase again. Thyatira, the one who overcomes. Sardis, the one who conquers. I keep saying overcomes, it says conquers, doesn't it? You'll see why I say overcome, because it's another synonym here. And then Philadelphia, I will make those of the synagogue of Satan come and bow down before your feet. The one who conquers. Laodicea, the one who conquers. All 7 passages contain this phrase, the one who conquers. 7 times, once to each of the 7 churches, he says, he gives this idea. Here's the goal. You got to be a conqueror. You got to be a warrior. And the reason I can say that that's the case is because notice the Greek word at the bottom. This is the Greek word from which you get the word conquer or overcome. And you can see properly it means to conquer, overcome, to carry, but the real meaning, watch, it's in quotation marks there. To carry off the victory, come off victorious. And then watch this. The verb implies a battle. Did you get that? The verb implies a battle. So you got all 7 of those passages that talk about, here's the goal of the 7 churches of Asia. You got to conquer. You got to overcome. You got to go to war. You got to be a warrior. And so back to my application then, if you compare the one on the left with the one on the right, this haunting passage on the left, Revelation chapter 19, describing a warrior who has gone off into war to do battle against that which is wicked and evil. And then you see on the right, the list of passages for the 7 churches of Asia where he tells us to be like that. We are to be warriors. My application to you is we got to start calling out these mealy-mouthed, weak-kneed preachers and church leaders who are not willing to step up and to speak the truth. We just simply got to. For the sake of the world, for the sake of the church, we got to man up. We got to grow a backbone. We got to do better. And I'm begging you, please, one of the things you can do, one of the ways you can exercise this is for you to vote on November the 3rd. Do your part. Won't you please do your part? And may I ask you also, if you would, please share this with your friends. Let them see this comparison as I throw it up there so that they can recognize. I'll put it up there one more time. Please let them recognize it. Please share this with your friends so that they can see that this is actually the picture of Jesus. He's not the sissified, mild-mannered Messiah that so many of our church leaders want to portray him as. This is a conquering Savior, a conquering Christ. This is a warrior king, and he expects of it. He demands of us. He deserves it for us to be warriors on his behalf. So my request is that you step up, be a warrior on behalf of Jesus Christ. All right, you've seen those. I want to bring this to a close by again telling you that I've got those 2 free books that you can receive but via email, which is in Wizards. But what about God? It's a 40 verse poem talking about Halloween and how you can treat it appropriately. And then that But Lord, the eternal tragedy of an assumed salvation. Very, very important book, more important than that, which is a Wizards book. This book I just completed, and it has to do with salvation and all of the false doctrines that are going around with regards to how you get saved. You know, the sinner's prayer and all that. And I actually go to the Bible. Imagine that. I actually go to the Bible and let the Bible tell you the truth so that you can see what God actually says about these kind of things. Because at the end of the day, who cares what Sonny Childs thinks? What does the Bible say? Let the Bible interpret the Bible. So let me send you those books. All I need is an email address. Yeah, let's see. I got that, and I think I'm almost done, guys. What else? Yep, there you go. Most of you are familiar with the 6 things that I do each week. Please join me, and if you are interested in seeing some of the backlogs of these kind of things, go to this right here. Yeah, there you go, right there. SonnyChildsMinistries.podbean.com. All of them are archived there, and you can. I'll tell you what, you got an endless supply of stuff to watch or listen to, that kind of a thing, with regards to the subject matter of God and who He is. And so, please join me in all those live things, or go to Podbean and pick up on that. Conclusion, please keep your eyes on the skies. He is coming. And I believe that as you see the things play out in our world around about us, the time of his arrival is getting sooner by the day. Keep your family close, your homemaker vigilant, keep watching the conditions and your investments in heaven, because too many of us are investing in here rather than investing in there. And because our investments are off, I believe that we are going to be some of those, if our investments are off, that will not be part of the remnant, and therefore will have the great wrath of God play out. And don't be that person. Please, I beg of you. Because if there's one thing I like to leave you with, It's this picture. It's my be there picture. You know what I'm saying? Folks, that will make it worth everything. All of the heartache, all of the inconveniences of being a Christian, all of that is what it's about. And so I beg of you, please, please, vote on November 3rd and you be there. Matthew 16:26.